historians and scientists are unable to explain the existence of some ancient sites and artifacts in this world. So in this video we count down 5 ancient discoveries science can't explain. Zacharias Sitchin has travelled the world many times over in search of out-of-place artefacts. He discovered that the Istanbul Museum of Archaeology had been holding a stone-carved relic that so closely detailed a modern space capsule they refused to display it. The curators assumed it had to be a hoax. The amazing vehicle displays many features of a modern-day capsule. Rocket exhaust nozzles in the back, and a cockpit with pilot seated and wearing a pleated flight suit with his hands at the controls. After meeting with the museum curators and studying the carving, he determined the artifact was consistent with many others that had been seen from ancient times, and suggested the museum display the artifact. He encouraged the curators to allow museum visitors to make up their own minds as to whether the object was a spaceship. In his article in Atlantis Rising magazine, Sitchin describes this object as a sculpted scale model of what to modern eyes looks like a cone-nosed rocket ship, powered by a cluster of 4 exhaust engines in the back surrounding a larger exhaust engine. The rocket ship has room for a sole pilot, actually shown and included in the sculpture. He describes the pilot as sitting with legs folded towards his chest, and wearing a one-piece rigged pressure suit, which becomes boots to the feet and gloves to the hands, and points out that since the pilot's head is missing we cannot know whether the pilot wore a helmet, goggles or other headgear. The artifact measures 23 cm long, 9.5 cm high and 8 cm wide. Sitchin spent years tracking down the artifact until he located it at the museum in Istanbul. The museum curators decided this small artifact must be a forgery, because it differs from the era's style and more importantly it looks like a space capsule. According to mainstream archaeology, the pre-Columbian Quimbayar culture were believed to have lived in South America from 300 to 1550 CE, and are best known for their precise gold and metal work. The majority of gold pieces discovered are made with a tumbaga alloy, with 30% copper, very similar to those accounts mentioned by Plato in his dialogues about the lost city of Atlantis. Among the intricate goldworks are several types of insects, and 2 devices that stand out to be aerodynamic in nature and of no other insect known to exist. The pieces look very much like the designs of modern airplanes, and incorporate a number of features essentially proving the Quimbayar knew and understood the principles of flight. Scale replicas of the golden flyers were built 5 times larger and tested precisely. Results from the test showed proved these airplane-shaped devices were capable of flight, and actually flew without any modifications using modern techniques. Many types of these gold reliefs have been discovered. It's easy to notice they do look very much like jet airplanes. There are many variations to this theme. Some archaeologists argue that they're simply birds, and the Quimbayar took some artistic liberties. However, others argue there are too many coincidences that bother them. The fact that the wings on the underside of the fuselage unlike an organic animal and much like a modern jet. Also the orientation of the stabilizer tail. It's vertical like a plane, not horizontal like an organic lifeform. Sometime before Easter 1900, a Greek sponge diver discovered the wreck of an ancient cargo ship off Antikythera Island, which is located to the northwest of Crete. Divers subsequently retrieved several bronze and marble statues and other artifacts from the site. The interest of the professional archaeologists brought in to conserve and assess the finds was initially centered on the fine statues, and the Antikythera Mechanism itself was only discovered to be of immense interest in May 1902, when an archaeologist noticed that a piece of rock from the site had a gear wheel embedded in it. Examination revealed that the rock was in fact a heavily encrusted and corroded mechanism that had survived the shipwreck in 3 main parts and dozens of smaller fragments. The device itself was surprisingly thin, about 33 cm high, 17 cm wide and 9 cm thick. It's made of bronze and was originally mounted in a wooden frame. The Antikythera Mechanism is one of the world's oldest known geared devices. It's puzzled and intrigued historians of science and technology since its discovery. The device seemed to have had a range of interlocking gears made of bronze and a hand crank to give a turning movement to the geared mechanism, plus a display that showed information about the moon, sun and planets against a background of stars. Following decades of cleaning the device, in 1951 British science historian Derek J. de Sola Price undertook systematic investigation of the mechanism. In June 1959, Price's An Ancient Greek Computer was the lead article in Scientific American. This article was the result of the first thorough description of the device, based solely on visual inspection and measurements. Modern X-ray and 3D mapping technology have allowed scientists to peer deeper into the remains of the mechanism and learn even more of its secrets. In the 2000s, researchers revealed a kind of instruction manual inscribed on parts of the mechanism. This had never been seen before. The text, written in tiny typeface but ancient Greek, helped them complete the puzzle of what the machine did and how it was operated. In all, it's astounding. The mechanism had several dials and clock faces, each of which served a different function for measuring movements of the sun, moon, stars and planets, but they were all operated by one main crank. Little stones or glass orbs that would have moved across the machine's face to show the motion of Mercury, Venus, Mars, Saturn and Jupiter in the night sky. The position of the sun and moon relative to the 12 constellations of the zodiac. Another dial forecasting solar and lunar eclipses, and oddly predictions about their colour. A solar calendar charting the 365 days of the year. A lunar calendar counting a 19-year lunar cycle. A tiny pearl-sized ball that rotated to show you the phase of the moon. And another dial of the mechanism that counted down the days to regularly scheduling sporting events around the Greek islands, like the Olympics. The mechanics of this are incredibly complicated. Located in the Peruvian coastal plain, the geoglyphs of Nazca cover an incredible 37 miles. They are among archaeology's greatest enigmas, because of their quantity, nature and size. The geoglyphs depict living creatures, stylized plants and imaginary beings, as well as geometric features several kilometers long. The startling feature of the Nazca geoglyphs is that they can only really be appreciated from the air, raising questions about how and why they were created. The Nazca Lines number in their thousands, and the vast majority of them date from 200 BC to 500 AD. The earliest lines created with piled up stones date as far back as 500 BC. The Nazca people were an ancient prehistoric culture that was successful in using engineering techniques to bring underground water to the surface for irrigation. However, little was known about this culture as they left no written record. The figures come in two types: biomorphs and geoglyphs. The biomorphs include around 70 animals and plant figures that include a spider, hummingbird, monkey and a 1,000-foot-long pelican. They are grouped together in one area on the plain, and archaeologists believe they were constructed about 500 years before the geoglyphs. There's around 900 geoglyphs on the plain. Geoglyphs are geometric forms that include straight lines, triangles, spirals and circles. They are enormous in size. The longest straight line stretches an incredible 9 miles across the plain. The lines were made by scraping away the reddish iron oxide covered stones that cover the desert surface to reveal the white sand beneath. In most places, wind, rain and erosion would quickly remove all traces of this within a year. At Nazca though, the lines have been preserved because it's such a windless, dry and isolated location. Although these perplexing lines were first discovered by Peruvian archaeologists, it was not until the 1930s, when air traffic in the area increased, that the lines became widely known. Although the lines can in fact be seen from the ground, there is nothing remotely exciting about seeing them from this perspective. However, from the air, their true beauty and the wonders of their creation can be realized. In the Qutub complex of Delhi stands one of the most curious metal objects in the world. The so-called Iron Pillar of Delhi, which does not seem to rust, despite being over 1,000 years old. The height of the pillar from the top of its capital to the bottom of its base is 7.2 meters, of which 1.1 meter is underground. The base rests on a grid of iron bars soldered with lead into the upper layer of the dressed stone pavement. The pillar's lower diameter is 420 millimeters, and its upper diameter is 306 millimeters. It's estimated to weigh more than 6 tons. While several inscriptions are found on the pillar, the oldest one is a 6-line 3-stanza Sanskrit inscription in verse form. As the name Chanda is mentioned in the 3rd verse, scholars have been able to date the marking of the pillar to 375 to 415 AD. Although it stands in Delhi today, how this pillar got there and its original location is still a subject of scholarly discussion. As mentioned, one of the most interesting qualities of this pillar is its resistance to corrosion. Several theories have been put forward to explain this phenomenon. These theories fall into 2 main categories: material factors and environmental factors. One of these theories, the mixed potential theory, suggests there is a correlation between the processing structure and properties of this pillar's iron. Based on scientific analysis, it's been shown that these 3 factors work together to form a protective passive layer of rust on the iron pillar of Delhi. As a result, the pillar does not undergo further corrosion, and appears to have not rusted over 1,000 years. So that was 5 ancient discoveries science can't explain. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more countdown videos.